Transparency and alpha maps act as masks to hide parts of the mesh. Transparency masks, or alphas, are handled similarly in Toolbag. Let's start by opening a simple mesh, this plane that I have here, and we'll take a look at how we can apply these types of maps to our objects. So to start with, I'm going to use the Dota 2 template that I have here. And if you've forgotten how to make that, you just go to Presets and Dota 2 template. And I'm going to click on it and scroll down here to my albedo channel. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to add my diffuse or color map to that plane. Now you can see there it's just a bunch of stripes. I'm going to position it over this dark area in my background so that we can see the transparent parts of this object a little clearer here in a second. Let's take a look at this map. And you can see here when we click on our preview, well, it doesn't really look like the map, and that's because I have the alpha checked. If I uncheck it, there's our map. Ideally, this white area here should be solid, and these dark gray areas should be translucent. I'm going to go ahead and click the alpha. You'll also notice that there's some fairly large circles here that should be completely see-through. We'll close that. Next, I'm going to scroll down to my transparency. Now, by default, this will be set on none. And so I would click on transparency, and I'm going to go to cutout. And that's the basic one that we would usually start with. Now, cutout is real good if you just have a black and white mask. That's what it's made for. But we'll take a look at it here with this one. You can see use albedo alpha is actually checked right now. If I uncheck that, well, then my plane looks the same as it did. If I go back to use albedo alpha, it's actually referencing the alpha channel from my albedo map. Now, this map is a 32-bit file, so there is an alpha channel built into it. We just looked at it. Scroll back down, and if I go ahead under cutout, and as we change the threshold, it's going to apply the rest of that mask. Now, the threshold basically just clamps down the grayscale, so it's changing what's visible. It's not really useful for too many things, except we do need to usually move the threshold all the way back down to about 10 or so. What is that? 0.1, 0.10, something like that, and it should display correctly. Now, I did say that this white area should be solid and the dark gray should be translucent. Well, that's obviously not happening right now. So we need to make some changes. I can go under cutout. Instead of cutout, I'll click dither. And you'll see that, well, now it is see-through. That white area is solid, but we're getting that dithering effect. And that's not really what we want either. So instead of dither, let's look at add. Now, add looks better. But now our white is see-through, and that should be solid. But you can at least see that those big circles are completely see-through. So we're getting close, but not quite right. I'll go ahead and click Include Diffuse. And what it's doing now is using the diffuse map. Remember, that was right up here. And the alpha channel from the diffuse map, and it's displaying much better. A few things to note when you're applying masks or alpha channels, anything with transparency. You can put a simple mask in this slot. That might be your alpha channel that's separated into a separate map. And we would just click here, add that into this channel, and you would click off Use Albedo Alpha. That's assuming you don't have an alpha map. Also, make sure under Channel that this has A selected instead of either your red, green, or blue channel. I think by default it might say red. That's usually not very helpful. You want the A showing here. If you want to adjust your alpha channel, you can do that here. Although usually if we want to adjust the alpha channel, we would do that in the alpha channel itself. Using transparency masks and alphas is a great way to show transparent or translucent materials. While Toolbag's terminology when dealing with these types of maps is a little different than most programs, I think you'll find all the settings you need here in Toolbox to get your transparency maps, alphas, and masks to display correctly.